is the Director General of GOI, Hemant Chabra from Huawei, Yugal Kishore Sharma from 1TT Broadband, and we will also have Mr. Rajesh Patak from Accident and uh, uh, Mr. Sanjeev Kumar. So, Safi, it's over to you. Let's start the session.
Okay, thank you, Anjani. Let's start our session. So, welcome everyone to the FTTH India Congress 2021. I'm Rusafi Alam, manager of FTTH Council Asia Pacific, welcoming you all to the second session of today's event, named Fixed Wireless Convergence and Fiber Planning for 5G Networks. So, I have four gentlemen with me. Lieutenant General Dr. S.P. Kothar, Director General of COAI, and then Mr. Hitesh Chabra, CTO of Huawei, and then Mr. Yugal Kishore Sharma, CEO of One OTT Entertainment, and Rajesh Pathak, Country Director of India and SAR. Hi.
Yeah, hi everyone.
Good morning. Good afternoon, Dr. Coach, and good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you, Hitesh.
Yeah, it's long time.
I think
I had some video problems, so sorry about the delay.
Anjani, I believe Rusufi's connection is lost. So with India coming up, I think Bangladesh, I'm sure there's a lot of work to be done on FTTH. Rusufi, I think we can see you. Yeah, he's back.
Yeah, so I think everyone heard my question. If anyone missed my question, just raise your hand so that I can repeat it again. Hello, Anjani, can you hear me? And all the other
Yeah,
speakers?
Rusufi, we can hear you.
Okay, so I think Mr. Yugal, let's start the discussion by your side. I hope you heard my question. If you haven't, just let me know so
No,
that I
no,
can.
you had got disconnected. You were yeah.
Okay, so my question was, let's talk about where the telco world is heading in terms of implementing FTTH services in India, and what is the best possible way forward in terms of providing seamless services to the end customer.
Yeah, so I think that's the one of the biggest question that the industry is witnessing at this stage. Uh, Been in telecom for almost 2.5 decades, we have seen our country evolve through the three waves, right? And it all
Mhm.
started with paging for a little while, because by then the two-way communication, mobile communication was already a big reality, so which hit India a little late. So we saw the evolution of 2G, 2.5, then came the 3G, and of course the 4G, right? And that's how India got its voice and its I would say data problem to an extent sorted, and uh, and uh, and then the world witnessed a phenomena just like the world is broken into two halves of before Christ and after Christ. Similarly, it is like before Corona and after Corona. So similarly, the world
Mhm.
world came to a situation where it was felt for fixed line networks even earlier, but due to Indian telecom, companies busy in mobility, trying to connect the country, every nook and corner, get the mobile voice, upgrade the mobile voice right up to 4G. Somewhere fixed line networks were their second priority. They did make effort. I think some of our current telcos did make a valiant of effort. However, the capex and the kind of overall cost that was required to acquire a subscriber and was humongous. So it was in the backseat always for all the telecom companies. Uh, Come our big brother, who opened up the mobile market in 2002, once again in 2016, has uh, demonstrated uh, uh, a large focus of theirs to do a fixed line broadband network. As we see, until 4G came into India, after the spectrum was announced, it took us 6 years or so to start building the ecosystem, right? And similarly, I believe, and of course, the telcos have always led, and of course, we all know the largest players with the long-term vision of building scale capacity at scale did that for mobile 4G and mobile internet 4G, of course, most relevant in terms of building the capacity. Similarly, now ecosystem for 4G, I'm sure Hitesh here and some of my other industry fellow colleagues, from the equipment side, are seeing that what was earlier a fiber to home rollout today has become a reality, right? So I would say that the telecoms have uh, played the role of opening up the market. Now it has come to their attention to roll out fixed line broadband. As I said, the after Corona period, which we witnessed for the last 3 quarters, I think internet consumption has gone over 2x in the home. We all are attending from different parts of our country or even continent. Like I can see Rusafi from Bangladesh. We are all at home or and stuff like that, and we have experienced that the telecom companies, government telecom companies, and we all forget the part of the industry that I represent, the MSO ISPs. Right? I would like to speak a little bit on that because
Yeah.
India has by and large 250 million homes. 250 million
Hmm.
homes, 180 to 190 million homes are already connected by a coax cable for cable TV, right? So wire is there. There is a way the wire reaches the home to about 180, 190 million homes. And surprisingly, if I asked anyone here, which is the largest private player who has the fixed line broadband market share, of course, government, we know BSNL, MTNL put together has always been leading this, but today it is at -7% churn on year basis because they are still on their DSL copper plant. People are finding, especially in the metros and big cities, to migrate towards fiber, right? So if you look at the ISPs who are from the MSO side, which is where so our company being a group company of the Hinduja Group, we have been the pioneers of starting cable TV. Way back almost 3 decades, and we brought the cable TV vertical into the country as in cable, and that's how the concept of LCO, which we used to call the cable wala, is
Yeah.
actually the last mile owner. And I'm proud to share that we brought the concept of last mile owner because these are the LMOs who are having their coax wire in every home in the vicinity that they serve, and the same LMO has also brought in whatever the Indian terminology in every section we know the jugaad, which is actually the innovation. They have evolved to bring the internet also, right? So I'm very confident and I'm very positive that the journey of fixed line broadband uh, will leapfrog now completely on fiber to home, and that's where that's where we are poised at this moment. People have kind of got ready with fixing their little bit problems here and there, and aiming at providing a robust connectivity. We all will see from all these panel discussions, and I've been attending several of them, like the others, or all of us, and life has not stopped. Especially for companies in telecom, the second wave of telecom has now evolved, where we are connecting just like the other, I would say, corona warriors in the country, the telecom warriors who have enabled the country to move on like a lifeline. And hence the MSOISP vertical that I belong to, as I asked the question, serves the highest number of homes. You all will be surprised. It's not the telecoms.
Yeah.
Telecoms, government telecoms, yes. BSNL, MTNL has got about 42% market share. Second largest is all the LMOs put together from MSOISPs, which is more than one third. Government and the private telecoms, the currently two or three telecom companies that are there, they put together have only one fourth, right? And this is, I'm talking about overall market share of fixed line. If you further slice and dice it into fiber to home, it further even gets worse, because government telcos is almost zero. So 66%, every second connection on fiber to home, by and large, would be given by an MSO ISP. And of course, telcos have just started, and I think the large telecom company has, like Geo has gone forth looking at this market and aggressively working towards putting in the fiber to home, what do you call, services. Last point from my side, which I think can give a complete food for thought. I did visualize, and I've been part of this telecom for almost 2.5 decades. The fiber to the home, I replaced the F with future to the home, because as we heard in the earlier discussion, there are like 127 IoT devices per second in one of the panel discussions I was hearing.
Yeah.
So that's the future. It'll be a smart connected home. And the way Corona has demonstrated globally, not only India phenomena, globally, adaptation of technology, and I feel so, I would say, content inside, because I also started Polycom, which was a video collaboration company, as the first employee in South Asia Pacific region from 2003 to 2009. And that's the time, we had 128K BPS, 256 on ISDN mostly, and it was like a concept cell. It was, you had to manage IT teams in your large enterprises to do a video call. Today, kids are doing online on their own. I see my 5-year-old son does an online class. He knows everything on the iPad, what to do, what not to do. Doctors are consulting. So technology adaptation, because of life after Corona, has leapfrogged the world by minimum 10 years.
Yeah.
If you see what would have happened after 10 years has happened today. And that's what I think has led to the ambitious requirement for rolling out fiber to home networks faster than ever before. And our honorable prime minister, announced from the Red Fort on this Independence Day that the government is ambitiously looking to connect the 6 lakh villages on fiber. So look at the need, look at the massive plan that's going on. So I'm very bullish. This is one wire which exactly will be just like the roads that we built to the smallest village 30-40 years back. Similarly, this is the highway that is coming up, which will carry all the services of e-governance and other things in our life, and it'll happen much faster than what we anticipated earlier. So that's my overall thought on how the telecoms are evolving. And I would like to share that when we say in fixed line broadband, it's not telecoms, it's telecom and MSO ISPs, because we already have the wire in 180 million homes. Nobody can put a wire in 180 million homes in the next 10 to 15 years, right? We just have to upsell. We have a customer there, and that's what we are busy in, by upgrading our existing cable TV customer by giving them a robust broadband connectivity. And that's where we will play a major role in the digital inclusion of the country. So that's what my initial thoughts are. My colleague also, Sanjeev Agrawal, has joined. Yeah, over to you, Rusafi.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Yugal. Very insightful contribution to for setting the floor for this session. So I think that was really interesting. So I'd request Dr. Kochar to add something to this question, and later on we will move to other speakers. Please, Mr. Kocher. You're on mute. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah. So thank you so much. I was saying that YK said it also beautifully well, and he's covered all aspects. So congratulations, YK. The thing that I would like to say is it, it is the consumer's demand and his requirement which dictates whether he requires fiber or copper or only mobile wireless. As rightly put across by YK, the COVID period has shown us that there are so many things in a house which have to converge and then they will consume bandwidth. Bandwidth is one aspect. Bandwidth you can get through Wi-Fi also, you can get through various other aspects. But stability of the network is an equally important issue. And that type of stability and assured bandwidth to multiple connections inside a home. Forget about future. Future, when smart things comes, it will become even more, uh, uh, you know, it will become more dense. But at this point also, every house in a metro will have 10 to 15 connections. Every individual has a mobile phone. We have a cable TV which will switch over to broadband connectivity. We have people studying, people being treated by telemedicine. So those sort of things all have to converge. And therefore, FTTH is now becoming an essential requirement. Only thing is, the economies of placing an FTTH to every home is something that the providers will have to see. That is one. Second thing is, once you have fiber, it can be interchangeably used also for backhaul of networks. You see, the era in which we are entering, 5G, will require huge amount of backhaul, will require fiberization. It will be like having a digital highway with digital arterial roads. Now, those arterial roads can also be used as the highway when the requirement dictates. This is unlike the physical infrastructure where it can't be interchangeably used. But digitally, the fiber can be used for both purposes. And that is where connecting every person onto a digital network with a proper stable connection which gives the required bandwidth is essential. Now, we may not require 100 Mbps, we may require just 10 Mbps at this point of time, but it has to be stable and it has to be assured. That sort of thing can come only through the fiber connectivity. Okay, so that is why fiberization is very important, whether it is in backhaul or it is FTTH. This will also bring convergence of operators. And I'm not talking of telecom operators alone, even MSOs and telcos may converge to provide facilities on a common channel. But that is future, and that is business imperatives which will dictate that. But technically, it is possible, and it will be beneficial to everybody. So these are some of the things that I think I will leave as initial thoughts, and later we will come to various other issues which hinder or help in fiberization in this country. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Kochar. So, really very interesting thoughts from your side. So, I'd like to request Mr. Hitesh Chabra to add something to this point.
Yeah, hi, Rusafi.
Hi.
Definitely, I do hear what Mr. Kocher and what Mr. YK has already said, and very rightly put into the perspective. We all a lot of connections increasing, like Mr. YK said that future to the home, right? He has replaced the word fiber, right? And Mr. Kocher also mentioned that there are a lot of changes which we are witnessing, like in terms of each household. The way things are changing, there are 8 to 10 connections, at least 8 or 10 devices in each of the homes these days. telemedicine, remote classes, and everything is changing. So we all are actually adapting to it. That's absolutely fine. And we, as like, I represent an OEM, I represent an ICT OEM. So we, as the manufacturers of equipments, also we need to we need to take this head on, and we need to come up with the innovations. We need to come up with the newer plans of newer, I should say, roadmaps, and we will have to quickly roll out things in a way that the I should say 66% owners of Indian wireline, that is the MSOs, they are also looking at such new innovations, such new devices, such new equipment, which can actually release the kind of pains which the MSOs might face, right? Like the energy consumption which is there. I mean, that comes under the OPEX. Every MSO would also be looking at the automation. Like no one would want to have to spend so much time towards resolving user complaint, because when we are talking about B2C, right, we are talking about households. Right? Imagine a situation where your child is having a class, all this virtual class, or maybe some telemedicine kind of thing is happening. You're having some kind of consultation or anything, or the way the things have changed, and you are not happy with the network, or there is some break, or there is something, right? So every customer would need some kind of satisfaction, and at that time every MSO or every LCO or whoever is the service provider definitely will look at it in ways where automatically they could locate the problem very fast, and they could be resolving it. Primarily, what I see is there is a change which we are witnessing, like in terms of bandwidth, it's ever increasing, data is ever increasing. That O&M has been a classical problem or a classical area of for every service provider. So there are a lot of innovations which are going on for this, for automation and all. We are also seeing that everything is now becoming experience centric, right? So it's gone are the days when we were talking about those ISDN links, as Mr. YK also said that 256 kb link was also considered to be something, right? And you need to have the IT teams to manage that, right? And getting a 256 kb link from a telco those days were there when feasibility itself took around a month or so. So we all have witnessed and very rightly said, and it's absolutely what we have seen in this pandemic time, that the adoption of technology uh, has definitely gone multifold, and I think that is the only silver line we should be seeing in such time also. And it has definitely, if we have to look at certain benefits, it has definitely helped us also in adoption of technology. So I'm totally with panel. I totally agree with Mr. Kocher, Mr. YK also, and this is what I would want to say.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Mr. Ritesh. So really nice addition to the introduction. So, let's.
Mr. Hitesh, I think you also have a presentation to present, right? You have slides.
Yeah, definitely. I do have a presentation. So
So just
shall I continue? Shall I continue? I thought it would be in a different session also.
no, no, no,
So
no.
in such
Just
situation,
no, no.
I'll
Just
just continue with my presentation also.
yeah, and then
I'll
we'll.
take up. Yeah, I'll take up from the point where I was mentioning that being an OEM, we do have to come up with certain innovations as well.
Yeah.
So with my presentation, I'll be taking you through
My only
what as
my only request would be just cut short your presentation if you can present your slides for 10 minutes max to max, so that the panel
of
discussion
course, of course,
will
of
be
course.
more insightful.
Sure, I do understand. I'll take it up in a faster way only.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure, please.
So yeah. So how I see this fixed network, or I should say the wired network. We are talking about the FTTH. So in our we see that we are at the fifth generation. The first generation was the voice era, then web era, or the video era, or lately we have seen the 4K UHD also. But now we are into the fifth generation, where we are also seeing a lot of services which have changed. Like we see that around 5 to 7 years back, we were getting into a comfortable or a better life scenario as far as the networks are concerned. Those were the services which were there. Now, currently, we are into the smarter society. We are heading towards the smarter society where we are talking about the smart homes or the safe city projects, or I should say smart manufacturing, online gaming, or telemedicine, or is. And of course, this event itself, this Congress itself is one of the examples, right? What we are doing right now. We are seeing that latency or the full fiber connections, enhanced fixed broadband bandwidth, everything has actually changed. If we look at the trends which are available, so, we have seen that globally 58 countries are there who have a national broadband program, and they have already released the gigabit services. There are more than 200 operators who have launched, and there are 30 plus 10 Gbps packages also which are available. So it clearly shows the way we are heading, the the way the technology is moving. And in last 4 years, India FTTH growth also, if we see in March 2020, we see it's a phenomenal growth where 10 million connected IoT ecosystems are there. We see that the broadband is also shifting from bandwidth centric to experience centric, as I was mentioning. Right now, the bandwidth is going from 10 MB to 100 MB to 1 Gbps wherever the feasibilities are there. But yes, I'm happy to see that a lot of change is actually happening. In the previous session, also I was hearing that India broadband penetration is still low. I do understand, but then still, there is a lot of silver line to that as well, because I can see there are many cities in India now who are offering very good bandwidth plans and very stable plans as well. We see that the latency requirements have been decreasing, and in the home network, we have reached to 7 millisecond as well. In the experience part, I would say a lot of OTT services, including the IPTV services, also have gained a lot of traction, especially in the pandemic time. So we see 4K IPTV. It's phenomenally good, and it's working well right now in many places in India as well. From narrowband to broadband, I would say the broadband era, whatever we have been talking about, it is redefined, and now we are talking about gigaband, right?
Sorry
Broad.
to sorry to disturb, Hitesh. I think you need to share your screen so that everybody can see your slides. There is an option called share screen.
Yeah, I actually did that earlier. I'm sorry I did not confirm with you.
You have to share your screen.
Is that fine? Anjani, is the screen visible
One
now?
second, not now. Just share your screen. Select the entire. Yeah, now.
Okay. So I was mentioning that we are seeing that from narrowband to broadband and now moving towards the gigaband. So there are a lot of operators, as more than 200 plus operators who have already launched the gigabit services, and we have tried here from certain reports to see globally how this spread is. Right. The evolution of access networks and the continuous improvement of the network bandwidth, what we see from voice to web page to broadband to 4K videos, and now, as I mentioned, there are a hell lot of services which we can provide. We are still seeing that every day there is a new service which is coming up and which can be provided, whether it is based on the IoT or it is based on the, I should say, connectivities which are there, from automatic meter reading till, I should say, the smart homes or the connected homes or the connected cars, which is right now into a very nascent stage where the internet cars are there. So there is a big if we focus here, O&M evolution, right? This is something which I would say continuous improvement, right, which is being done, and this is where we play a big into the as an equipment provider, right? We have also taken care of the O&M evolution, and we see there is a big leap which has happened in this particular area. If you see the we have come up with the new blue ocean, as we say, everything connected, whether it is to home or to business or to the campus or facility management. And there are this all network is made of simple three components, which is OLT, ODN, and ONT when it comes to the active part. But there are a lot of innovations which have actually happened at this area also. The evolution, if we are talking about some safe city kind of projects, then the upstream rate is more than 200 Mbps. If we look at the VR experience, then we are more sensitive towards the latency, which should be less than 20 milliseconds. If we look at the cloudification of enterprises, then our key concern would be about the reliability, which should be more than 4 nines. If we look at the education part, again the latency and the bandwidth becomes important. So what I'm trying to say is new services, every new service has associated metrics with it, where the requirement for network is very stringent and it is getting more and more stringent. And so the technology is also evolving that way. If you look at the platforms, here I would want to mention that how we cope up with our innovations or how we cope up with the next generation platforms that we have. We have the OLTs, which can have 3 scenarios in one, right? The fan sharing or 4-level HQoS or 80 core programmable network processor. So what has happened is devices have also evolved, and now these devices are earlier there was a time when FTTH boxes were only the access boxes or the architecture was different. But now with artificial intelligence inside, they are more like the network. I should say the core network or the core IP network kind of boxes, where they also support the SRv6 or VXLAN or IPsec, those kind of functions which were native to the IP boxes only. However, with the high concurrence and these kind of facilities available in the boxes, I would say next generation OLTs are now available, and next generation OLTs, what they do is they can cover up all the scenarios into one box. So 3 kind of scenarios, as I mentioned, 3 networks also into the one, where cloud VR as next IPTV, or maybe the symmetric gigabit line XGS that we are talking about. Copper reframing, again, we have heard a lot in this session also that copper is losing actually the sheen now. So everything is now moving on to fiber, but still, even if there is a native, even if there is a legacy network of copper or coaxial cables, right, we can have a single box which can take up the legacy network as well. And the best part is for 3 modes also in the single box for multi-pawn rate, which is flex-pawn, as we say. In the single box, we can have 3 modes, which is your GPON or maybe XGPON or XGS PON, along with the I should say class B and C SFPs which are available. So single highest capacity or the next generation boxes are available in form of our OLTs. And as I said, the distributed architecture with the SDN orientation, right? This is the future to go, wherein the single box, without having the need to change the box, that calls for the investment protection for everyone or every MSO, wherein the total cost of ownership reduces drastically, where a single box today, if you are going on GPON and tomorrow you realize, okay, XGPON is required, and for certain scenarios XGS is required, and then the box also is doing the is into the planning for the 50G PON, where we have actually 50G PON evolution ready box we have already prepared, and based on single wavelength, there is a prototype also which is already under test. So this is about the flex PON, which I was saying, for the investment protection and the, I should say, total cost of ownership reduction. We have tried to summarize as to how much cost is saved or reduced. If you see a single box, just by changing the cards or just by changing the SFPs, if you can go to different bandwidths or different flavors of the PON, then the total cost of ownership is reduced by 25%. That's something which MSOs would be looking at, right? And with the ONT parts also, I would say for the home ONTs, we are also promoting this Wi-Fi 6 as we chair the Wi-Fi 6 forum as well. I was also talking about the total cost of ownership in terms of the OPEX part. A lot of money from MSOs actually goes for the maintaining the networks or keeping the network up. That's the power cost. So it also calls for the reduction of carbon footprint also, and I think every OEM should be looking for this. However, we are leading the table here with 10G PON service port power consumption. If the industry average is 8.6 watts, then our boxes would be going for 6 watts. So that is again 30% of energy saving. And that we do with the different kind of algorithms which are there for 4-level power control mode in the equipment, where is standard mode, basic mode, deep mode, and the optimal mode. In the interest of time, I would not go for the details into this, but yes, definitely, I would say it's a very major factor, and we would say being green is also a global responsibility of each of us. So we are working towards that as well. If we talk about the ONTs, then 10G PON ONTs with Wi-Fi 6. These are the boxes. These are the small, I should say, powerhouses which should be there for each of the homes who are having the 8 or 10 connections, right? We all were talking about so many mobile devices and so many, I should say, connectivities in single home. So for that, what we need is the pipe, which is the 10G pipe, which is available in the XGPON part for us. And then Wi-Fi 6 also, which can provide the ultimate experience to the users, where the 6 Gbps kind of bandwidth inside, that is the air interface rate is available. So that's 4 times the throughput of Wi-Fi 6. Again, the experience can be preserved and experience can be enhanced as for the automation and the I should say the time required for resolving any issues or resolving any complaints or to protect the MSOs from churn. Right? There has to be a brain also into the network, where that heart or brain of the network should be looking at the network from a bird view, as well as it should be touching the network. So the management platform which we have, it's called iMaster NC. In this platform, we have a different modes wherein most problems that occur inside the home networks is towards the Wi-Fi getting disconnected or some kind of disconnections, or maybe in any of the path, locating the problem becomes sometimes an issue. But with this marvelous piece of I should say software, we do have a lot of reach towards remotely repairing also and diagnosing also the problems, and it can really turn around the things for any of the MSOs for any given problem. If there was a time which was required to resolve, if PTR was around 3 hours or 4 hours kind of time, then it goes down to 30 minutes or 40 minutes. So it's a big leap forward towards the automation of the ODM, as well as creating the intelligent access network. Whether it is zero touch deployment, or it is zero touch provisioning for ONT, or simply API OSS integration, wherein different billing and I should say the other softwares which have to be integrated for the end-to-end service. So API should be available. So there is an orchestrator also in the software which we have. At the bottom, we have seen we have taken 3 cases of operator S that we say. Operator S and D. What were the results that we have seen? The involved engineers were reduced from 3 to 1. The site visit time was reduced from 2 to 1, and provisioning cost it reduced by 25%. Similarly, self-service provisioning and automated roaming improved the efficiency by 30%. And of course, the migration scenario using the APIs, the interfaces reduced, and the time to market reduces by 4 months. So that is all about the business aspect, I should say, the business improvement that can happen. Look at the innovative technologies that we have in the single fan pro thing. The first part is FlexPon that I have been again and again urging for. And if we look at the second thing is about the world's first XGS PON, I should say, home gateway that we have along with Wi-Fi 6 for premium user experience. The quick ODN solution that we have, it simplifies the fiber deployment. So end-to-end splicing free, or I should say uneven splicing things can be done. So the key takeaways I would say is speed, elegance, manageability, stability, money saving, and future proof. So all what we have discussed is we have to, as the ICT service providers, as the ICT manufacturers, we have a responsibility to come up with the innovations like I have shown in this particular slide. Although the time was less, so I had to rush off. But still, I hope I'm able to convey the message, or I should say I'm able to convey the offerings that we have.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Hitesh. So it was nice presentation. So I think I I just wanted to continue our last discussion to brought towards Rajesh Pathak. If you can add something, if you want to add something to our previous discussion, you may.
Yeah, yeah. I think I would echo what Dr. Kochar and Yugal Kishore mentioned out. But today's scenario, what I see is from FTTH point of view, Indian wide broadband market is projected to grow more around from a 200 million uh, in the current year to 243 million by 2024. So I think the currently penetration of the wide broadband in the country is very low. There is a lot of a fiberization which still requires, and I think during the COVID times, all the providers have really played a pivotal role because all the services which has offered, and it shows the resiliency of the network that it was able to cater. But in a current scenario, what I presently see that a fiber to home still has to reach out if you compare from the other countries in the APAC or the European or American market. We are currently, the 3 million in the FTTH out of the 19 million, in the market abroad. So I think a lot of stuff has to be done on that side. I think currently in the increase application of ICT services, low transaction costs, and increasing connectivity are further expected to drive the market. And then a very important thing is out how government of India also helps out from laying out the fiber. Currently, the fiberization, if you compare with other markets like China and other, the Chinese market has the infrastructure players who give the services to a lot of the service providers. And I think with a 5G rollout, it's very, very important to have, and where our FTTH network is really going to play a very important role because of the backhaul, as earlier mentioned by Yugal, and also that, it's, that, end-to-end connectivity is very important from an FTTH point of view. We currently, with the 5G rolling out, our access networks needs an augmentation. We are currently on a GPON, and we need to go and upgrades on the 10G PON or the XG PONs, or in some of the country 10G PONs are there, and they're probably looking out for the 40G PONs. So I think there is a huge work to be done. It's a Herculean task to be done in next 4 5 years. And there is a good convergence which I will see with the 5G and the FTTH. It is important that the role of the fiber-based network holds a significance, since with the 5G coming out, there is the scope of the 5G would be like a 400, 500 kind of a meters. So it's a 4x of the towers required as compared to the 4Gs of the world, and that really adds lot of infrastructure costs onto the providers today, primarily because they only not have to go and put the infrastructure there, but also on the fiber. So I think it is good in a coming model if there is a convergence. There is the infrastructure place who comes out, and we see that the 5G networks and the FTTH network grows. If you compare with the mobile broadband to a wired broadband, we have seen that there are issues still, even you are on the very high speed mobile broadband network, but to every nook and corners of the house, your wired broadband really works out because of the applications which are running now. OTT players are coming. There are a lot of video applications are started. And as mentioned by Dr. Kocher, that each home will have 10 to 12 connections now. Eventually this is the future. India has to really catch up on that. And I think our subscriber base during the COVID time has increased, and I think by 2025 the subscribers will definitely grow 50% of that. And I think that is something which we really look out.
Okay, great. Very insightful thoughts from your side. So I think Rajneesh Garg has joined. Can you hear me, Rajneesh? Okay, I'm not sure whether he's joined or not, but I can see him. Okay, we will reach him later on. So, but before that, just I'd like to
Yeah,
request
yes,
all the
I'm there. Am I audible?
attendees. Yes, we can hear you. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah. Yes.
we thank you for joining. So, we were discussing the prospects about the FTTH services in India and what we can see in near future, and what actually best possible way forward in terms of providing seamless services to the end customer. So we have covered all the speakers so far. So if you'd like to add a little bit point, you are most welcome.
Yeah, yeah,
Rajnish,
yeah.
please.
Sorry. So, yeah, Anand. So, I think let me just brief upon something like that. Why this FTTH? This is going to be a key driver when we are moving to the 5G transport now, because you see the 5G, the critical aspects of the key 5G drivers are this: the massive machine-to-machine connectivity, then the low latency, and the high capacity.
Yeah,
These are the three key drivers. And when you go for this FTTH solutions, you are able to get actually all the things driven through the mobile, this transport network. You're able to get a high capacity in the last edge of the network. So it will be a good supporting factor which will help the operators to drive both mobile transport as well as the this 5G, the new use cases which are driven primarily from the enterprise networks also as well, to leverage on the edge network from the last fiber pops. So like wherever you have the fiber pops, you can expand your network by doing just a little bit of last mile, and connect to the various buildings and then start using this FTTH advantages. So this is going to be the key driver, I think, when we are going for this 5G networks, because most of your bandwidth requirements will be concentrated in a very small geographies as well. So you need to have the high capacity demands based on the high penetration that is required in the networks. So I think that's going to be the key driver in that. Yes, Alam.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Rajni, for joining on board. So, to all the audience, if you have any discussion or any question or during any discussion point, you may ask that in the question section. You may type that, and we will discuss that in the conclusion part.
Uh,
Maybe we will take some of the questions later on. So,
Rusafi, just to
yeah,
interrupt
please.
you, can you go for one question to Sanjeev also from on TT Broadband? Then we will have the audience question, or maybe you can run the panel discussion again with few important questions.
Okay, so Sanjeev, right?
Yeah,
From
Yeah, hi.
One
This is Sanjeev Agarwal. Yeah.
yeah, sure. So, yeah, please, if you want to
I
add,
just wanted to add here because consumers have started realizing the benefits of a high-speed internet connection. Their hunger for data is ever growing. Okay, and as rightly coined by Mr. YKS, FTTH is rightly coined as future to the home. So my only request is, we know we all need to get together, form an ecosystem, and ensure that the demand is fulfilled by the consumer. Thanks.
yeah, great. Very precise comments on the total discussion. So, thank you for your insight. So, I will move to some other discussions right now. Maybe we will focus on 5G sometimes later. But before that, I'd like to ask a general question again to the floor. That how far are telcos such as Geo versus Airtel, for example, in their FTTH/FTTX journey? What are your opinions, my colleagues? Please, if you want to answer the question.
Safi, I think this question doesn't relevant because we don't have any spokesperson from Geo and Airtel in this panel.
Okay, so okay,
Maybe
okay,
you can ask some few question to Rajneesh, who is representing Vodafone Idea. He might have something to talk about on Vodafone FTTS.
Yeah. So, Anjani, I was just going to speak on that. So maybe, though you have not asked me, but I can still tell you that what is the
no, that
operator's
was that
pain
was
problem
that
here,
was
right?
that was to the floor. Anyone can pick the question and answer. Not a problem.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So basically, Alam, the point is that the operator problems remains the same when we go for this FTTH kind of a deployment, because you see, primarily it's not about only deploying the equipment here. It is about the fiber that is to be deployed, that to the edge points when we talk of the fiber to the home kind of situations, or fiber to the offices, or any to the buildings. So the challenge is that the infrastructure, the number one point is that the government has to support on the ROW front and on the last edge of the devices. When we see that there is the fiber deployment happens very quickly, and the permissions, ROW permissions, they get very quickly, and the charges are less. Because of, let's say, if you see this pandemic, this is what we have been taught by this pandemic, that how to work in a closed environment, sitting at home or so. So I'm sure that all these enterprise operators who have been there, so like Bharti, Jio, Vodafone Idea, or TCL, or all the other operators as well, the other ISPs, there have been a lot of momentum that has been gained up in this whole calendar year of 2020 due to this COVID situation here. So I think understanding this situation, then the things can more be penetrated, and this will further boost up the morale of all the operators as well. That's it.
Okay, great. Thank you for your input in this question. So, I think let's move to some part of 5G. My We will discuss one by one. Maybe anyone can take up the question and answer. My question would be like how the 5G deployment will take shape in India in terms of coverage, in the coming 5 years, and how FTTH will play a pivotal role in the deployment. What do you think, to all the speakers here,
Yeah.
please?
So let me take this question. I think, as I mentioned earlier, also, and 5G is very much dependent on the fiberization because the backhaul requirement will be too much, and you can't do it on a traditional microwave. So I think the most of the service providers are focused on the fiber, and the reason why we are able to carry a lot of traffic, which I mentioned that without any glitch on the COVID lockdowns, when the traffic was 20 to 30% hit increase in a one day, and there was without a plan. So I think that was the phenomenal job done by the operators in India. The very important thing that why we need to put the fiber to connect the more towers, especially when we all need them to a backhaul 5G. So I think the FTTH is plays a pivotal role. The reason because of because of the fiber is already laid down by for the FTTH, the same could be utilized rather than separately doing out, and in the infrastructure where when we use an FTTH, we use kind of a linear topology. But when we are kind of doing any backhauling, putting a SIN, or we kind of do the ring, so probably we use the business ONTs when you come on the from a terminology perspective. I think another area would also be where most of the operators today thinks like it's not only would be the FTTH, but also with the backhaul technologies like a E band or a V band to backhaul, that to be also the nearest fiber hub, because you can't fiberize the 100% towers, right? Sometimes fibers get cut. You all need an alternate method. I think that will be a good combination of a microwave or a wireless backhaul and the fiber. So I think there's a good roadmap for next 3 years, because of the fiberization might take a little long. And I think I've seen, and Dr. Kochar is already there, that there have been the requests gone to the government for the incentive programs and how we do it up. So I think that will take typically a longer time, but that's a need of an hour. And I think very important that for working for a well home broadband subscribers, the cable operator also has also put a cable or fiber inside home. So I think it probably would be partnering for doing the further the penetration on the fiber. And then I think very important thing which I also feel like, and which is the automation. Automation is the need of an hour. How you can actually by various artificial intelligence and ML. I think this all will really make a good journey, and I see that next 5 years it's is having a good potential for India. But again, at the same time, it's got a Herculean task.
Okay. Yeah, really, very realistic view on this. So I'd request Dr. Kochar to add something to this question, please, if you
Yeah,
may.
yeah. Thank you so much. See, what he has brought out is very relevant. One is the technology part, and second is the cost effectiveness. So the technology is ready. Fiberization is a given. That without fiberization, we cannot introduce 5G, and even the present services cannot improve without fiberization. The question is about making the wherewithal available. And what has been said is that the cost of fiberization is too high in India. And unfortunately, it is not similar across the length and breadth of the country. The central government has given some guidelines for ROW, which are not being implemented by the state governments, by the local bodies. There is a huge difference between what is recommended by the central government and what actually is being charged on ground by different authorities. That has to be normalized, and there has to be a process where the 10,000 rupees per kilometer ROW, which has been mandated by the central government, is effectively charged by the others and not charged arbitrarily as high as 1 crore per kilometer. So that nobody will be able to do fiberization in that aspect. Second is backhauling in manner which is uh, something like, if I may say, fiber in the air, and that is E and V bands. The fiber cannot reach or may not be required in all locations. India's geography is such that fiberization in many areas is not possible, and their E and V bands can provide the same capacity, and that is what we have requested the government, that these bands should be used for backhaul, and it should be auctioned to the various people who want to use these bands. So that is a decision we are still awaiting. The reason for that is that 5G you mentioned, 5G will come in a differential manner in India. What requirement is there in the urban area may not be required in the rural area. So there will be different versions of 5G which will have to be rolled out in India and at different points of time. In densified areas where industrialization is dense, 5G as small cells will come, which will be in higher bands where the capacity is more, reach is less. But in rural areas, the capacity requirement will be lesser. Reach is more important. So we will have to use different frequency bands which are in the lower realm. So these are the aspects in which 5G will roll out. But even with all this, I will re-emphasize that fiberization is a must. And government has to make efforts, go out of the way to see that this fiberized foundation is strong and stable. And that is the only way Industry 4.0 will draw benefits out of this infrastructure, these fiberized networks. So this is exactly what we have been asking the government, and all operators are unanimous in this, that the ROW charges must be rationalized, fiberization must not be impeded, and there should be single window clearances, effective clearances. E and V bands should be auctioned so that we can start rolling out and we can start planning our networks. I think I will stop at that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kochar. So, very interesting thoughts. Uh, I think I'd like to move to operator now, to Rajneesh again, to add to this question a bit about that. What will be your planning for going in the coming 5 years regarding the 5G, and what would be your fiberization priority also in the coming days, if you would like to add here.
Yeah. So basically, Alam, so as we know that yes, the 5G is primarily will be driven by the high capacity radio sites. Like we move from 2G to 3G to 4G to 5G now, and in every G there is a 1G addition, and the capacity addition is 10 times. So this is all happening in the last 3G to 4G also, and now 4G to 5G also. When 4G was 100 Mbps, so 5G is coming to be 1 Gbps or even 10 Gbps now. So and this is what it is keep on happening. So it's only a 1G addition, but in the transport it's going to be 10G addition, 10 times addition that is there. So to meet this, actually the role of fiber is going to be the huge, and as rightly mentioned that the fiberization in the last edge, that is going to be the challenge for everybody, because keeping a lakhs of because of the vast geography of the country like India, so it's very difficult to lay down the fiber to each and every home. So though it will be a challenge, but yes, the if you want to really scale up the 5G networks like we are now, let's say, experiencing the 4G, in the next 5 years time frame, you have to do a penetration of close to 50-60% of your fiber pops at least should be fiberized. sure sites or 50% sites should be fiberized, so that you can at least every alternative site is fiberized, and then you can ensure a good coverage to meet the 5G customer demands, and as well as that will help us in providing the huge capacity demands that is generated by this. So this is going to happen. So the currently the POP penetration, if you see compared to the sites, is close to 20% or so, 20, 25%, 30% in this range. It has to go past the beyond 50% range. That's what should be the target for all the operators. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to request Sanjeev Kumar to add here a bit about our last question.
Yeah, so as said by Dr. Kochar as well as Rajesh, I mean, you will have to look at upgrading wherever you don't have fiber. You will have to look at upgrading and ensuring that the last mile up to of fiber is delivered to each and every house. I mean, that's the only way to fulfill the needs of the consumers.
Okay, great. So now it's Hitesh Shabra's turn to comment on this point. Please welcome Hitesh.
Yeah, so as rightly mentioned, and because we all have been here day in day out looking at all this, so I think every point has been covered. The points which Mr. Kochar has also mentioned about the demands which all the operators have unanimously kept to the government, and the RO things, ROW issues. So nevertheless, because I totally agree to this, and I will have to be talking about the technology part, and how this fiberization and the other parts are there, because there can be certain things which are regulatory, there can be certain things which are probably, I should say, the priorities change, right? For an operator, the priority would be something different. For a technology provider, it would be different. From my side, I would say we are there to support everyone for the fifth generation, I should say, the fixed networks which are there, and there can be a lot of, I should say, innovations which are available towards this. And regarding the, I should say, because someday, right now, down the line, I can see that someday there would be a 5G also would be a reality, and there would be trials also which would be starting soon. And that is definitely a time when this FTTH network would be playing a very big role, wherein I see a lot of offloading would be happening, and I should say it will happen both ways, because these access networks or the home networks also would be pumping out a lot of data which can be used and transferred using 5G towards the, I should say, the clouds, which can make sense out of that data, and a lot of smart and connected things would definitely happen. So, all in all, I would say that we are on a right track and seen a lot of things. And with COAI, definitely working towards the benefit of all the operators, and as an association moving ahead, I see a lot of traction, and I see a lot of things improving very soon. That's it.
Okay, so just I want to ask a bit more to you, specifically to you, Mr. Hitesh, that what are the advancements and challenges for FTTH in the 5G era, do you think? And in India, as we saw that FTTH homes pass and penetration is still very low,
Mhm.
what should be done
Mhm.
to overcome the challenge?
Okay. Okay, okay. So now this seems to be a question related to the technology, so that would be a bit better for me to answer, because you're talking about the 5G, I should say fifth generation, or I should say the advancements which have happened in the FTTH network. So see, FTTH actually, if we see, it has taken the leaps quite fast, and we have on this network itself, we have seen times when it was about POTS, and then ADSL, and then it came up to GPON, and now it's 10 GPON, and as I said, 50 GPON is also under the prototype is ready and it's on the test. We see that. the basic network was a requirement, and then better network was a requirement, and now the smarter society is the place where we are moving in, right? A lot of adoptions which have happened, right? In terms of, I should say, whether it is cloudification or whether it is VR, which is coming, a lot of applications which are there, smart manufacturing and all. So those are there. So, what advancements have happened? I would say from bandwidth-centric mentality or bandwidth-centric networks, we are now only focusing on the experience-centric, right? So, high bandwidth or low latency, or I should say, the high reliability. These are the 3 points which are inherited now in almost all the networks, and everyone is looking for that only. So, these are the advancements, right? If I have to talk about the advancements, then the I should say investment protection things like the flex pawn, the same box using all kind of flavors of pawn without having the need for changing the I should say changing the box, and reducing the TCOs for the service providers. That is where we are moving. And um, if we talk about the advancement, I would definitely I would be talking about the greener designs which are there now. The power consumption for the devices have been reduced as compared to earlier times, right? I attribute it more towards the reducing size of chipsets and all, wherein the power consumption is also reducing. Yes, there is still a scope, and I think everyone should be working towards reducing those CO2 emissions towards this. If we have to talk about the challenges, as you mentioned, what challenges that are being faced or that were being faced, so I would say O&M and rollouts, these are the classical challenges which lead to most of the churn part, right? Today, at least we have gone that far that feasibility probably is not a big concern for, I should say, many of the operators, because the tie-ups are there, and the operators are closely knit as well, I would say. When I say operators, I'm talking about the ISPs, or that includes the MSOs, right? So they are LCOs and MSOs. They are closely linked. I can see a lot of say handshake and a lot of leveraging of each other's strength, which is happening in terms of models, and it happens. O&M, automation, and the time to resolve, these are the things which are more towards the churn of the customers, which is the biggest headache. So I would say this is a big challenge, and unless everyone goes for a smarter, I should say, management platform, and I should say the turnaround time for any resolution has to be ever reducing, because customer demands are, of course, with the advent of so many I should say applications which are very sensitive towards the experience. So every customer demand is also quite high right now. I would say the these are the challenges as well as the advancements which have happened. And regarding there is one more question that you have asked, that was about the lower penetration which is there. So I would say that the lower penetration, it's already there is a push from the government as well. If we see a lot of states going for the state fiber network projects, right? Whether it is the, I should say, BharatNet project, which the government had launched for getting the fiber towards each of the GPs, and getting the network connectivity towards each of the gram panchayats in India. So, although because of several reasons, it has been successful in many places, it has not been that successful at many places. But then, I would say it's all on track. It's all going ahead. It's all going ahead. Somewhere, if the speed has been lower, I would say the execution speed has been lower. I'm very hopeful that it will be covering. So, in my view, I would say once these kind of programs which are there, if these are executed well, then the penetration problems would definitely reduce a lot. That is what I would say.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot. That was really nice from your
So,
side. So, my
Musafi,
next question would be, yeah, Anjani, please.
I think we have talked about a lot of this FTTH scenario and challenges with all the speakers. They have given their inputs. Now, I would like to request you, Rusafi, to share some thoughts in terms of, in view of FTTH preparation in Bangladesh. What are the challenges in your country, and how soon you see FTTH in Bangladesh for the end consumers?
Okay, great. So thank you, Anjani, for your question. So basically, this will be my personal opinion to the Bangladesh scenario, but I will add a bit about the whole APAC region scenario as well. So,
Sure.
firstly, regarding Bangladesh, the fiberization it's in very good shape, I'd say, because government has taken very quick initiative to cover all the entire of the country with the fiber, and two to three organizations. One of the speakers were in the previous sessions as well from Summit Group. So they are one of the network operator in Bangladesh who are maintaining one part of the government network, and another one is there as well, fiber at home. They are jointly managing and deploying and managing the network in Bangladesh. These are like the last mile networks, but they rent the networks to the operators, and to some in some parts they also rent their networks to the operator, MNOs as well. So I'd say if the market is still very segregated, it's not very organized right now, but government is really trying hard, and there are some organizations like ISP Association Bangladesh and some other associations who are really working hard to push the FTTH and fiberization to the next level, so that the 5G, when actually launched, maybe in 2022 or 2023, that is launched in a good way. So our Prime Minister advisor for ICT, he he has directed all the ministries and other associations also to come forward and work on it for to launch the 5G within 2022 or 2023. So I think in terms of Bangladesh, it's really going good. Uh, but as I saw some of the other countries outside Bangladesh, like if I say the developing nations in APAC, the developed nations is way forward for deploying the networks, like Japan, South Korea, Australia, and some other parts in APAC. They are really way forward for deploying the 5G because they are completely fiberized, and they do not lack anything to take quick action. But some developing nations in the APAC, I have seen last year that some of them's comment was like 5G at this moment is not really a very priority to them. It is definitely a necessity, but maybe in the coming 5 to 10 years path, but not that it will be taken as a priority in the 2 3 years or 2 to 4 years at least, because it needs a huge amount of investment, which maybe will be a difficult situation for them to organize, because in many of the APAC countries, we still see that they are not covered with LTE or 4G yet. So I can take a good example here of Cambodia. Last year we were in Cambodia for an event, and we met their regulator and the other operators. So they were really skeptical about the deployment very too quick. So in this context, I can comment that in some markets that 5G will be a really kind of not so burning hot topic at the right context, but it is in the plan. Maybe 2 to 3 years later, they will start deploying. So this is I can add here regarding the 5G and fiber situation.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Musafi. It was good to hear your development in Bangladesh regarding FTTH, 5G, and hopefully in Bangladesh we will see 5G services to be launched in, as you mentioned, 2022, 2023. So
Yeah.
I think if anybody have something to add, they are open to add. Otherwise, we will need to conclude this session because we are already running 30 minutes behind the session time.
Yes. Sure. Please.
Hitesh, Dr. Anything you want to add? Something?
Thank you. We've already said what we had to. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. So with this, I think it's time to conclude this virtual conference on FTTH. Rusafi, we did this physical event last to last year, if you remember, and you were one of the part of this conference as speaker, and there are some senior fraternity from FTA Council also participated, but because of this COVID-19 pandemic, we are working virtually, and we all hope for the best that this pandemic gets over as soon as possible, so that we all can meet physically and have face-to-face discussion and talk about the next step forward in regard to the FTTH services. So, on behalf of NextGen Conferences, it's great pleasure to thank each one of you, and I would also like to thank the sponsors, principal sponsor Huawei, gold sponsor GX Group, gold sponsor STL, and FTT Council Asia Pacific. I think without their support, this event could not have been possible, and that's it. I think we will definitely finger crossed that we will meet physically on this platform to talk more about this future development. So thank you so much, Rusafi. Thank you so much, Hitesh, Professor
Thank you. Thank you.
Rajesh ji,
Thanks.
Rajiv, and Rajesh sir. Thank you so much for joining us uh, late.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Anjali.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Great
Thanks,
to have
Anjali.
you here.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.